Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just jump right in, because today we are tackling something, well, pretty much everyone on Earth has dealt with. That absolutely dreaded awkward silence at a social event. You know the drill, right? You're hanging by the snack table, maybe at a networking thing or a buddy's party. You've burned through the basic hi, how are yous, and suddenly, bam, the conversation just dies. You're staring a hole into a plate of mini quiches, desperately racking your brain for literally anything to say, while the silence stretches out like a rubber band that's just about to snap. It's excruciating. But hey, good news. Today, we are going to fix that for good. Seriously, though, have you been trapped in one of those awkward silences lately? If you're feeling a little rusty making conversation, please know you are definitely not alone. I mean, so many of us are still feeling totally out of practice with in-person socializing after the pandemic. Walking back into a crowded room, it can be nerve-wracking. And why is it that our brains just seem to blue screen and freeze the second someone asks a simple question like, "So what do you do?" It's a completely normal phenomenon. But don't worry, because by the end of this explainer, you are going to walk away with a super practical step-by-step toolkit to navigate literally any social interaction in English with total confidence. So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover 1. The art of small talk, 2. Questions to break the ice, 3. Upgrading your vocabulary, and finally, 4. Sharing opinions politely. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, the art of small talk. Before we get into the exact words you should be using, we actually need to talk about the underlying strategy here. You know, language and culture are completely intertwined. And in English-speaking cultures, small talk, it isn't just mindless filler. It has specific unspoken rules. We really need a mindset shift here. Just look at this profound quote from our source material. Small talk is a form of politeness. It's an opportunity to recognize the humanity of someone else. I absolutely love that. It totally reframes the whole concept. It's not some boring chore. It's actually a meaningful tool for building connections. It lets us sort of dip our toes in and see if there's a deeper relationship there waiting to be found. Okay, so a massive part of that strategy is knowing exactly how much information to share. And to figure that out, you really just need to consider 3 things: the relationship, the situation, and the time. First, the relationship. Are you talking to a total stranger or a coworker you sit next to every single day? Next, the situation. Are you literally dodging traffic on a busy street, or are you mingling at a formal networking event? And lastly, time. Are you just passing each other in the hallway, or are you strapped in next to this person for a 3-hour flight? Figuring these 3 things out tells you immediately how deep to go. Like, it'd be super weird to dump your entire medical history on someone while rushing through a crosswalk, right? But on the flip side, if you're on a long flight and only giving one-word answers, you're going to create a really tense, awkward vibe. You've got to match the depth of your chat to the environment. Now, once you've read the room, it's time for the secret weapon, the give and take formula. Small talk is a two-way street. It should never be a massive one-sided monologue. And honestly, worse than that is the dreaded one-word answer. Think about it. Someone asks, "How was your weekend?" And you just say, "Fine." Bam. The conversation just hits a brick wall. Where do they even go from there? Instead, try these 3 simple steps. Step 1, give a short answer. Step 2, add just 1 or 2 quick details. And step 3, ask a related question back. So it sounds like this. "It was great, thanks. I finally tried that new Italian place downtown. How was your weekend?" See how that works? This formula practically guarantees a smooth, rhythmic exchange. It keeps things flowing back and forth naturally, kind of like a tennis match. Moving right along to section 2, questions to break the ice. So we know the rules of the game now, but how do you actually spark that very first interaction? The trick here is to completely avoid yes or no questions, because those just shut things down immediately. Instead, lean heavily on open-ended W and H questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how. Think of these as open doors. You're basically inviting the other person to walk right in and tell you a story. If you're at work, you might ask, "How did you get into your field?" Or if you're catching up on travel, "Have you got any trips planned?" Or, you can always fall back on the ultimate conversational lifesaver, the weather, and just say, "Can you believe all this rain we've been having?" These questions are brilliant because they give the other person room to actually talk about things they care about. Actually, if you're going with the travel route to break the ice, I've got a fantastic little idiom you can use to make those open-ended questions even better. Hidden gem. A hidden gem is basically a really amazing place, like a cafe or a park, that tourists don't usually know about. So if you're visiting a new city, asking a local, "Hey, do you know of any hidden gems around here?" is practically guaranteed to get a great response. It's a neat psychological trick, really. People absolutely love feeling like insiders, and they usually jump at the chance to show off their hometown to an eager listener. All right, let's jump into section 3, upgrading your vocabulary. Okay, So the ice is broken, and now you're in the middle of the conversation. This is where you actually have to share your own interests. But man, it is so easy to fall into the trap of sounding like a broken record, just saying, I like this or I hate that over and over. You start sounding a bit robotic, right? Well, if you want to instantly elevate your conversational game and sound way more engaging, just swap out those basic words for something a little more advanced. So instead of a boring, I like reading, try saying, I am passionate about reading, or I'm really fond of it. And if you despise something, let's say cooking, don't just say, I hate cooking. You'll sound so much more articulate if you say, I loathe cooking, or even just, I can't stand it. Speaking of things we don't like, here is an absolute must-have idiom for your toolkit. And funnily enough, it has absolutely nothing to do with actual tea. The phrase is, not my cup of tea. It's a super common, really polite way to say you aren't interested in something. So if someone asks about gaming, you could say, playing video games just isn't my cup of tea. It's a brilliant little phrase because it lets you express a negative opinion while still sounding completely polite, culturally tuned in, and naturally conversational. Now, remember how we talked about avoiding those flat, one-word answers? We called them verbal stop signs. Well, the best way to avoid them is by using what we call a hook. And this ties right back into our give and take formula. Remember that rule about adding one or two details? The absolute easiest way to force your brain to do that is to use conjunction hooks. So instead of just saying good when someone asks about your week, try a hook answer. Start with, it's going great, thanks, but then add a word like because, so, since, or but. By doing that, your brain automatically fills in the blank with a bite-sized detail. It keeps the other person interested, and it keeps that conversation rhythm perfectly alive. And here's a really great example of how to naturally slip that bite-sized detail into the chat. Let's say someone compliments your garden. You wouldn't just say, thanks. You'd use a hook, and hey, maybe throw in a great idiom like green thumb, which means having a natural talent for keeping plants alive. So you might say, thanks so much. I guess I've always had a bit of a green thumb because my family had a big garden growing up. What about you? See? It's short, it's personal, and it lobs the ball right back over the net for them to answer. Which brings us to section 4, sharing opinions politely. As your conversation moves past that initial small talk stage, you're probably going to wade into slightly deeper waters. You might start talking about current events or business stuff, and that is where friction can happen. So how you frame your thoughts here is absolutely crucial. Sure, you can casually tell a buddy, summer's way better than winter, but that kind of blunt language doesn't really fly in formal settings. Imagine you're in a boardroom and your boss asks what you think of a new policy. You can't just blurt out, well, it's a bad idea. It comes across as way too casual and unearned. To share your opinion with confidence while keeping your professional credibility intact, try framing it. Use phrases like, in my honest opinion, from my perspective, or it seems to me that. These phrases are like a magic wand. They smoothly upgrade your speech from a casual chat to totally respectable boardroom language. But, what happens when you flat out disagree with someone? In English-speaking professional environments, dropping a direct, I totally disagree, is risky. It can instantly trigger a defensive reaction and totally derail productive communication. So if you're navigating a sensitive topic at work, here's a highly effective strategy. Deliberately validate the other person's point before you drop your own perspective. Try saying, I see what you're saying, but, or I understand where you're coming from, but. It's a game changer. Psychologically, it makes the other person feel heard and respected. And once they feel validated, you can firmly state your differing viewpoint without sparking an argument. And finally, let's look at the last piece of the puzzle, the graceful exit. Look, every good conversation has to end at some point, right? Whether you're stepping off an elevator, heading to your next meeting, or honestly, you just really want to get back to watching movies on your flight, mastering the polite exit is so important because it's your last chance to leave a great impression. To pull off a flawless exit, try something like this. It sounds like you had a great time. If you don't mind, I'm going to get back to my book. Just look at the elegant structure there. First, you positively summarize what they were talking about, which makes them feel good about the chat. Then you set a firm but completely polite boundary, getting back to a book, checking some emails, whatever it is. It's graceful, it's clear, and it is perfectly acceptable in English-speaking culture. All right, so we've covered the unspoken rules, open-ended icebreakers, advanced vocabulary hooks, the delicate art of polite disagreement, and how to gracefully bow out of a chat. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I'm tossing the ball over to you with a question. What is your absolute best tip for navigating small talk? Take a second to really chew on everything we've unpacked today. Think about how you can enthusiastically put these strategic formulas into action during your very next conversation. The dread of the awkward silence? Yeah, it's officially gone. You have the toolkit now. So, until next time, get out there, keep practicing, and keep connecting.